Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This week I'm going to be doing a little painting and kind of talking you through how I overcome the ugly stage, how I kind of overcome the fear of making bad art and all that fun stuff. So yeah, it's been a minute since I've done a personal painting, which is kind of sad. It's been around 2 months, I just realized. So I kind of wanted to use this week's YouTube video as an excuse for me to do a little something for me. I love Halloween. I'm a big Halloween person, so I just wanted to do something cute and simple and a little spooky but playful. Yeah, I had this drawing in my sketchbook. I'm on screen right now, and you can see that when I start, it is very rough. When I'm kind of initializing an idea, I really don't try to make it a nice drawing at first. I just really kind of scribble it out, and then if I am going to take this drawing and I know I'm going to make a painting of it, then I'll take it into my digital drawing software, which I use Paint Tool Sci, and I'll just kind of finalize the drawing there. And I prefer to do it digitally just because it's really easy to just kind of like flip the image and adjust and resize and everything, and then I can just kind of trace it onto my painting paper. So yeah, so I am erasing the sketch underneath, and that's because I don't like to have any kind of pencil show through, so I just find it kind of muddies the colors and everything. So yeah, once the pencil's gone, I just kind of throw in some more burnt sienna over top, and yeah, once we've got that, then that's kind of my base for the ugly stage, which is, what I want to talk about. So for me, I am somebody who totally embraces the ugly stage. I know it's not a part of everybody's process. I've seen your guys' YouTube videos and like your reels and stuff of it's like so aesthetic right out of the gate, and for somebody like me, that's very, very intimidating, and like I don't know, that's way too much pressure to like go into painting expecting it to look great immediately. Um and I know it's kind of rewarding because it's really cool for people to see it kind of progress like that in a way that's like you can see the eye realistically before anything else is rendered, and then you can see the face coming together and yada yada yada. I don't really work like that, so my whole shtick is to kind of get rid of the white of the paper as soon as possible. So like that's how I personally deal with that fear of messing up, the fear of like just dealing with the pressure, of creating something great. So I just literally go step by step. So, okay, how can I get rid of the white of the paper? Let's outline my sketch a little bit more and kind of refine that, focus on that. Okay, done. Now I will destroy the white with just a little bit more burnt sienna and just kind of create a little base for myself. Done. And then once I have that, then I just go over with a really thin wash of like the local color. So like for the blue here on the bird, it's really thin and the brush strokes are awful and it looks gross. You know what I mean? Like everything at that initial kind of ugly stage, it looks blotchy, it looks super unfinished, and that's because there's no values established, there's no rendering, all the edges are kind of sloppy. So and that's kind of what makes an ugly stage, honestly. Like you might have a really, really great idea, but it might be hard for you to go from that great idea to actually executing it properly because you have a hard time believing in yourself that you can like overcome that ugly stage. So and what my advice is, maybe if you struggle with that like me, is to really just go step by step, and even when it looks really bad, trust that you can figure it out. Like you just have to stick with it long enough to see it kind of come to light. So yeah, for this piece, I put in all of the local colors, and then you'll see me here. Like I started to go over with a little bit of shading. Like I'm slowly building up those colors, the opacity. I am using acrylic paint, by the way, so it is inherently more opaque than a lot of other mediums, but the way that I use it, where it really dilute it with a lot of water, it's thin until I want it to be thick, and I like kind of working in that almost watercolor style. Again, just because it's a little bit more progressive, it's a little bit more, I guess, easy on my mind. Like if I just go into a painting like, okay, I'm gonna go in with fully thick paint right out the gate, and it's just like a blank white paper. That scares me way too much. So, yeah, this kind of slow, gradual, step by step process has been really helpful in my mind. And then kind of telling myself that, if I do make a mistake, then I can just take some white acrylic paint and cover it up, and then, it's gone. Essentially, like, it may not be perfectly gone, but I could certainly even go further and take it away completely digitally if I really wanted to, or if I found it was really like a really distracting mistake. And then it's always like, even if this piece doesn't go well, I still have my initial sketch, like my initial drawing. I still have that on my computer because it was done digitally. So if I mess up the painting bad enough, then I know that I can just trace it again and start over. And it's not like I'm not being so precious with the drawing and like being terrified of messing it up, right? And that's obviously another reason why I really do enjoy kind of having a digital base to work off of. And I didn't do it with this one because it was just kind of a smaller piece, but usually I'll figure out the colors and maybe some basic shadows with my digital program as well. But yeah, for this one, I just kind of knew I wanted a bluebird and an orange pumpkin because those are complementary colors. So it was pretty easy for me to kind of decide that. But yeah, so here you can see me like slowly, gradually building up those values, building up the thickness of the paint. So what I'll do is like after I've got those initial washes of paint, I'll add more white, or I'll start adding my Liquitex soft body paint. Yeah, the soft body acrylic, so like the professional line of their paint. And I do actually find that the vibrancy is like way better than the basics line, which I do use both. Like I'll typically use like 80% basics, and then for where I really want the colors to pop and be really vibrant, and then I'll use the professional brand. So because I'm very stingy and I don't want to use the expensive paint unless I really need it. So um, yeah, going in with the highlights, kind of darkening the edges. Really, honestly, rendering is just a really tedious process of cleaning up the edges, darkening the values, smoothing out the color. Like that's kind of all it is for me. And one way that I'll render is I'll the areas that I know would be in shadow, then I'll kind of darken the line around the edge just so it feels a little bit more crisp. And I find that way it almost looks a little bit more digital, which is my background. So yeah, it works for me. I find that looks a little bit better than doing a full solid outline around the entire image. That's kind of been my compromise because I am like a very line dominant person. So just focusing on the lines in the shadows is a good blend for me. Yeah, when I first started out, I find that what's really improved since 2019 when I really started to paint was that my patience has improved most significantly. I used to go into painting kind of expecting it to look good, just like the videos I've seen other people do, of their own process and, having it looked aesthetic right out the gate. And I used to bring that expectation into the painting with me when I was just a beginner, and that's just not a realistic way to look at it, particularly when you're starting out. If you kind of adapted a process that, does lend itself to being more visually pleasing, you know, progressively as it goes along, and that's great. But I think when you're starting out and you still don't really know how the pieces are going to come together, you don't trust yourself technically yet. I think you really need to allow yourself to experience that kind of awkward, clunky stage, and because that means you're learning. That's the whole learning process. It's meant to feel clunky. It's meant to feel awkward. And still, even for me, I've been doing this for a few years, and I'm sure that the more I learn and the more I progress in my skill, then the ugly stage will, kind of get less and less prominent. And so to other people, maybe it will appear as though it's just easier, or it just comes to me more naturally. And in reality, it's just more of like, this is years of practice that I've accumulated in such a way. So yeah, I think it's really important to share the ugly stage. I know maybe some people feel really self-conscious about it, but Um, I love sharing this because I know that I really craved to see that in other people for so long when I was starting out. And I remember trying to look up everybody's process online. That was such a big thing for me when I was learning, like trying to see how other people did it and like why, trying to figure out why mine looks so bad compared to everybody else's. Like, I feel like I had the image in my mind, I just couldn't execute it. And so I just didn't understand that I really needed to stick with it and be patient and that it would come together the more that I kind of trucked along and again, focus on the edges, focus on the values, focus on smoothing out the base of the paint. Yeah, it's funny how much of a mental game art really is. I'd say you can watch as many videos as you want and take as many classes, and it really does come down just to practice. Like you need to get some mileage under you in order to feel more confident and more comfortable. And it's you need to continuously show up and go into a painting, expecting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I think when you go in with that expectation, then it just, I don't like, that's just part of the process. Like it's not such a hurdle to get started anymore because you know what to expect. You know you've done this before, and the more that you kind of show up and create work, then you learn your tendencies. You kind of learn the different patterns that you have that work and the ones that don't work, and you kind of through trial and error adjust your process, and you just like, learn more about yourself and the way that you want to work. And I think that's a really important habit too, is just to kind of keep track of the stages and the steps that kind of work for you, and that you can kind of trust and know that if you do this next step, then it will make the piece look better. And of course, there's nothing that's completely guaranteed or sure proof. Like you're always going to have a piece that doesn't go the way you want it to, even though you may have a process that's really solidified. And and that's okay. That's just the way that it goes sometimes. You know what I mean? Like that's the beauty of art. It's never going to be a completely predictable thing, but the more experienced you are, then it becomes slightly more predictable as you go on. So yeah, what I like to do is I will like write down detailed steps of my process, like particularly when I'm trying new kind of techniques or like stages or something like that. I'll write down right beside it. Okay, first I filled it with a really thin layer of paint. Next, I put thicker paint or I add darker shadows along the edges, and I'll kind of detail everything that I'm doing just so that I can kind of refer back to that if I'd feel a little bit lost or like where am I going, like what do I tackle next, or I feel completely overwhelmed at the prospect of progressing in a painting. So that's really helpful for me, and it's also like a goal thing too. It's a lot easier for you to accomplish anything if you have like a clear set of directions to follow. So having a little bit of a guidance beside you as far as like the steps right now, I think is really really helpful just to kind of keep you on track. And um, yeah, I mean, I hope that's helpful. That's been really helpful for me anyway, and I'm sure my experience will change as I learn and improve. But this is the final painting. Hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable now and a little bit more ready to tackle your next painting. And happy Halloween, everybody! I hope you enjoy. I hope you get lots of candy and stay safe. And I'll see you next Thursday with another video. Thanks.